tell you, before we get into the ingredient list, I would like to tell you what the greens formula does not have in it. And so we have a certain political entity, and he always kind of puckers his lips out and says, China. And China is the source of a bunch of synthetic vitamins. And so as Dr. Alex mentioned, this is all organic and it's all whole food. So what we should maybe point out is if it wasn't organic and it wasn't whole food, what you're getting in a lot of multivitamins at about the same price point is they're getting their B vitamins from like coal tar. Do a little research on this. 80% of this stuff comes from China. It's coal tar, it's acetone, it's ammonia. They're using high doses of the vitamin C compounds, or like ascorbic acid, which is not fat soluble, so it burns through your kidneys, can up your kidney stones, give you diarrhea. You're absorbing very little of it. The vitamin A compounds they're using are the beta carotenes that are synthetic, and they're retinols. And so this is all from not only whole food, but be very clear, organic. And what that means is there's no chemical derivatives, there's no fertilizers, no pesticides, there's none of the things in there that can pollute this. And this is a deep dive here that I wish more of us knew, and we could protect our families with this fun fact. When you go to the grocery store, you can go to your local major, I don't want to mention names because I don't want to get a letter from anybody, but you go to your big grocery stores, and you can go through the produce aisle and you can get lettuce and collard greens and carrots, and especially non-organic celery. And you can come back and you can test that stuff. You can find the active chemical that's associated with all the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that's in Roundup. You can get that not in your backyard. You can get that in the produce aisle at your grocery store. So one, we don't want a bunch of chemicals, but two, we want not just whole food. We want to make sure it's organic. So we would never give our children Roundup and their chewable vitamins. Well, what if the chewable vitamins also had artificial flavors? What if they also had all kinds of synthetic things from coal tar in the B vitamins? And so please don't believe me. Please do some research and look at like the major sources of these vitamins. So one of the things that we see a lot of do-gooder companies, and they really are passionate about trying to keep people healthy. And they'll come out, and I've used many of these over the years, and we always use what's the best available thing to us. Well, we've never had something that was not only whole food, but every single thing in it was organic. And so what a tremendous thing. And so before we talk about what it does have in it, let's celebrate what it does not have in it. And then I'd also like to make a real clear point here. There's really smart doctors out there. The gentleman who just left the screen is one of them. And I know some really bright guys in practice. But if we're being really, really sincere and transparent with our patients, one of the best things that we can do as physicians is we can look at our patients and say, you know what? I am smart enough. I'm absolutely smart enough to realize how dumb I am. And so instead of me trying to provide you with a synthetic this to fix that and another synthetic this to fix that, and instead of me playing the chemist, let me use Mother Nature, the higher order of things to fix your problem. So I'll give you an example. I graduated in the early 90s with my undergraduate degree, and I was a pre-medicine biology and chemistry major. And so back in those days, we knew about 20, I believe it was about 21 cousins in the retinol family, or in the, more clearly, the vitamin A family. When I took my board exams for my doctorate degree 4 or 5 years later, we were up to 25 cousins. So we found 4 more cousins in that family. So I told one of my professors, I said, hey, I think in undergrad, if I remember right, and of course I took the test, learned it all and forgot it all because I didn't know I was going to end up using it every day. I think there was 21 cousins in that family. And now is it 25? And he said, well, it's probably 40, but we're only smart enough to synthesize and duplicate the 25 that we know about. But if we got vitamin A from food, we might get all the cousins, the ones that we know about. And here's the kicker, guys, the ones that are unknown. So when we're using whole food, we're getting the unknowns. And so all we have to be smart enough to know is how dumb we are. And if we go with the more natural source, we'll solve the problem better. I've worked in clinical nutrition now for 26 years. What I've found is when I identify the health problem, and we'll talk about some of those tonight, as a deficiency of this or a deficiency of that, and I use a more natural version of this or that, I get a better, quicker, faster, more complete solution. And so I think we have to have an approach of natural whole food, and then we have to celebrate what's not in it. Okay, so I want to kind of make that derivative. Now, the other thing I think is huge before we talk about this specific list, and Alex is going to shoot me if I don't get started here in just a second. But here's the other thing. I hear so many marketing ploys by nutrition companies, and they'll try to come in and convince me that, well, no, you can't absorb vitamin D unless you have omega-3, or, oh, no, you can't have vitamin K without black pepper. So here's what I would tell you about that. Largely, a lot of this is just marketing. And so they want you to believe that because their product just happens to have that little combination in it. Here's what I would say about that. How does it present itself in nature? And when you look at factors and cofactors and enzymes and coenzymes and catalysts, if we go whole food, the natural order of things puts it in a format that is the most bioavailable to the human body. We're not made to live day to day on synthetic chemicals. We're made to take our nutrition and our building and rebuilding blocks, our corrective influences from nature itself. And so we'll get on to what this has in it, but knowing that that is the source, and the things that it does not have in it is what we ought to first take note of. So there's some omissions in here that should be celebrated. Now, getting onto this list. So when I have patients in practice that have vitamin A deficiencies, I try not to give them synthetic vitamin A. And so all these synthetic beta carotene formulas, your body can actually convert some of that, but it's much better if we get vitamin A from beets and the greens of beets and veggies and some of our colorful fruits. And if we get our vitamin A from that source, that helps with night blindness, it helps with eye issues, it helps with liver, gallbladder, urinary bladder. Those are huge issues. And vitamin A and vitamin C is on a seesaw. So if you really load up on vitamin C, you'll deplete your vitamin A. So I have all these people in the winter, they get sick and they take a bunch of vitamin C and they don't really respond. But if we give them A and C at the same time, they get a tremendous shortening of what they're going through, and we can sometimes really slow the duration. So when we don't megadose one certain nutrient, we get them all together, our body can use that better. Now, going from A to the next on the list is C. Here's the kicker. We talked about C. If it's in that ascorbic acid form, that is not fat soluble. We blow right through that. And I think Alex almost jumped off the cliff when Dr. Jordan Rubin, who formulated a lot of this, was telling us about their farming procedures and what they've got that's unique and special. And we tortured Alex with a 20-minute conversation about some of his mushroom programs. But the compounds that are in the mycelia and some of these fantastic things that they've got there are the whole food sources of this. A couple things, guys. Vitamin C is technically a carbohydrate, and your body loves to take carbohydrates. When cancer patients go for a PET scan, they give them a glucose solution that has a radioisotope in it. And we know that sugar goes straight to the tumor. So if we have cancer patients on here tonight, when you had your PET scan, you know that you had to take that sugar solution and they had to mark it with that radioisotope to find where it was going to feed the cancerous cell. What I would tell you guys is your body sends vitamin C, the carbohydrate, to the cell, but it doesn't feed the cancer. Vitamin C helps your immune response. So in a not overreaching way at all, but in a technical manner, that means to some degree, vitamin C has a anti-tumoric or natural killer cell effect by increasing tumor necrosis factor and these type of things to work almost like a chemotherapy. So we were talking with Dr. Rubin, and Dr. Alex and I had discussed a mushroom called turkey tail. Well, these mushrooms are on the farm that is where we're getting all of these great whole food products for our vitamin C. Fantastic. Well, let's get down here to vitamin D. So during COVID, everybody that was trying to fight back and prevent COVID, this and that, became more and more aware of vitamin D. So that's a good thing. And almost everybody that works inside who's not out in the sunshine, working like on the farm or that type of thing, is somewhat deficient in vitamin D. Now, when you take a person who's like my complexion or darker, we're the most at risk for very low vitamin D. And so you may have heard during COVID that lots of the people who got a much worse case of that were darker peoples. I had a pretty significant case of it myself. And so I took a ton of nutrition during that time to make a comeback from that, and chose not to do a whole lot of pharmaceuticals during that. But darker people reflect more sunlight than we do absorb. So especially us darker people need more vitamin D. And so we're getting it from whole food sources here. Now, vitamin E is actually a hormone. And most people don't know that vitamin E is not only a vitamin, but it's a hormone. And it's just a chemical bond or two from being testosterone. And so we all know that aging gentlemen like Dr. Alex probably need to focus more and more, I'm in that group too, on increasing their vitamin E so that we increase our testosterone. We all know that our men in our generation have about 1/2 to 1/3 the testosterone that our fathers and our grandfathers had. It is an epidemic because of our nutrition. Now, I'll tell you this, for the ladies on the call tonight that are listening, ladies, testosterone is not just for your roommates. Testosterone should be one of the highest sex hormone levels in the female body as well. And now more than ever, ladies are joining us with heart disease and all of these things. Remember, vitamin E is almost testosterone. And if we took a lot of testosterone, we'd have really strong biceps, muscles. But remember, the heart's a muscle. And now ladies are joining us with heart disease and heart attacks and having almost as many as gentlemen, because they're just as testosterone deficient and vitamin E deficient as we are. Okay. And then moving on from the heart to the blood, Dr. Rubin and Dr. Josh have put in K2. That's the green stuff from your leafy greens and from the farm, not a synthetic, actually comes from the greens. Now, when we get into, hang on, I'm gonna have to cheat here, excuse me. Thiamine. So vitamin B1 is a big deal, guys. And I want you, if you're actually got a pen and paper tonight, you're listening to this, it's time to get your pen and your paper ready to go. Here's where we're going to go into hyperdrive. But vitamin B1 is a big deal. Vitamin B1 is stripped out of our bodies when we eat refined grains. And so to metabolize sugar, especially carbohydrate from refined grains. Now, let me just tell you how we state that in my office. That's white trash, okay? Your mamas and your grandmamas should have told you not to hang out with white trash. And I hope Dr. Alex's parents taught him not to hang out with white trash. But what I say by that is white bread.
I am white trash.
Nobody buys that. What I'm stating there is like no chips, no cookies, no crackers, no cakes, no pretzels, no croutons. When you get vitamin B1 deficient, then it's kind of referred to, the condition is called beriberi, but the translation of beriberi is the great mimicker. So there's a lot of people that have these neurological symptoms, and B vitamins are very good for the nervous system. And because they've had so many refined sugars, we have a tremendous difference in practice when we get them on a whole food B complex. and we cut down on their white trash. And then we start making nervous system improvements, really, because our whole population now is getting type 2 diabetes. This one's huge. Now, one more thing about B1, I'll move on. The B1 is always going to be depleted with people who do any significant amount of alcohol at all, and anybody who does a large amount of refined grains. Now, remember, beer is bred in a bottle. So if we're doing much beer, we're definitely getting a fair amount of white trash. Well, if you're deficient in B1, you can't metabolize your carbohydrate and your sugar like you're supposed to be. So let me tell you the epidemic of this. I took my national boards to become a physician in the mid 90s. And so in 96, when I graduated and started practicing, 1 in 17 Americans was a diabetic. I believe now it's closer to 1 in 6. So it's 3 times worse than it was because we're consuming more and more and more white trash, but also because we do not have the eraser that helps you process your vitamin B1. Now, here's a challenge. Everybody out there who's got a blood sugar meter, here's what I want you to do. I want you to have a little field trip, and I want you to do a white trash meal. I want you to measure how many ounces it is, and I want you to have exactly the same amount. But here's the kicker. I want you to take a whole food B1 30 minutes before you eat the exact same meal, and have the exact same meal 2 days later without the B1. And I want you to take your blood sugar, and I want you to see what B1 will do for you if you do that. So everybody on here, me included, has an occasional excess of carbohydrate. So here's the thing. If we're going to do the thing, we better do the thing that keeps the thing from causing us to have the thing. So I think that's perfectly clear. Don't you think, Dr. Alex?
That's classic.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So now let me pick up some speed here, or we're going to have a 2 day. Yeah, we'll go to the next thing. So the next thing I want to talk about is riboflavin. And riboflavin, or vitamin B2, that's a real big deal with people who have too high of a carbohydrate thing. And Dr. Alex was gracious enough to give me the floor on this. So I want to tell you guys a little something that is of tremendous importance to me. In my practice, one of the things we really focus on is I try to help people. One of my biggest, highest populations of patients is migraine patients. And so we have people who come from lots of places who have suffered for a really long time with migraines. And what we find sometimes is migraines will get a whole lot better when we get vitamin B complex deficiencies, especially riboflavin, fixed. So here's what I do. And if you've ever been to a headache doctor and they didn't do this with you, then we probably need to find another headache doctor. But here's what I always look at with them. And the headache people will show me on their head, it starts here and it radiates like that. And I don't pay attention to that. I get real close to them and I see if they're oily in the corners of their nose, if their lips are cracked, and then if we're oily, greasy, shiny, and we're cracked in our lips, I take their shoes and socks off and I look at their feet. And if their heels are cracked, I know that, and they have headaches, I know that they have a massive vitamin B2 deficiency. And if I fix the riboflavin levels, there's a huge likeliness that I can help them with their migraines. Now, anybody who also has headaches all the time and itchy, watery eyes, or itchy, watery eyes without the headaches, or lots of allergies and histamine, very likely you're getting a riboflavin deficiency. And these things get way better with whole food sources like what you're finding here. And we'll megadose them sometimes to solve the problem quicker. But if you were taking this every day, you're heading in that corrective direction every single day. Now, the next one on the list is niacin, or vitamin B3. And so we're going to be politically correct here. But gentlemen, this is a circulation issue, okay? And not that ladies don't need good circulation too, but when we have people who have, cold hands, cold feet, poor circulation, and gentlemen who have erectile dysfunction, that is a circulation issue, sometimes more than a hormonal issue, we can help with niacin. Now, niacin also helps us lower our LDL cholesterol. Some people call that bad cholesterol. I would tell you there's no such thing as bad cholesterol. There's just too much of a cholesterol issue in there. And here's the kicker. You'll get more misinformation on cholesterol than you'll get on almost any other topic. My strong opinion, very strong opinion, I think you can Google this, is niacin is probably one of the biggest fixes for cholesterol. Now research that and feel good about it, but you're getting a real natural source of niacin in this every single day. Niacin lowers your LDL and it raises your HDL, but it comes, in this case, from greens. And why that's important is most people think that if they have high cholesterol, they need to quit eating meat. That's exactly wrong. When you have a USDA grain-fed steak, realize the steak, the beef, ate the bread. So if you eat the animal that ate the bread, you ate the bread. But if you have grass-fed beef, you didn't eat the bread, and that actually will start to lower your cholesterol. So
I never do that. I never do that.
Well, stay with me, because I want to bring you, this is every single person that's worried about their cholesterol should own this. And so when we have people who have a high acidity to their bloodstream, the acid will burn a hole in their blood vessel. Okay. And then they'll have a bleed or this or that. And so that happens actually fairly, thank God, fairly rarely, but stay with me. So we all know what a dental cavity is. So hopefully everybody's brushing their teeth before they go to bed to get the sugar off so that the sugar doesn't eat a hole in their tooth. Well, 95% of what you swallow goes through your bloodstream. So if it's erosive enough to eat a hole in a hard tooth, when you go to the dentist and they scrape on your tooth, it doesn't hurt your tooth at all. That's how hard that thing is. But think about the acid will eat a hole in it. What's it doing to your blood vessel? So we're going to blow out and blow a leak, except there's this magical protective compound that our body synthesizes in our liver called, drum roll, Alex, cholesterol. And the cholesterol is the bulletproof vest that keeps our acidity from burning a hole in us. Now, we're getting our niacin to lower our cholesterol from greens, and greens alkalize our pH in our blood, so we're not as acidic, so we can bring our cholesterol down, because if we're not as acidic and we're not getting shot at, we don't need as thick of a bulletproof vest. Is that fantastic? So that's also in this form. Yeah, and so if we're not mega dosing it, but we're getting it every day, we're going in the right direction with that. Now, back to our magic mushrooms. When we get over to the vitamin B5s and B6s that are found in this, that really is tremendous for people who have muscle fatigue. So if we're going really hard and we're sore, our muscles burn, we're recovering athletically very, very slowly, that's often from a vitamin B5 and B6 deficiency. Now, on B6 is a big one. And then, Alex, I promise I'll pick up speed here, but everybody needs to know this. Vitamin B6 is one of the biggest things for pain. So if you have carpal tunnel, if you have sciatic neuritis, if you have trigeminal neuralgia, if you have pain, if you have nerve pain, B6 is tremendous. Now, here's the other thing. Vitamin B6 catalyzes about 100 different enzyme reactions in your body, mostly dealing with protein. And how you know you're vitamin B6 deficient is you've had a lot of grains, you have cracks in your lips, and telltale signs is you have swollen ankles, fluid retention in your lips, and you sleep really, really poorly. And so also, this is what's beautiful about this formula. Niacin can deplete vitamin B6. B6 can negate niacin. So when we have niacin and B6 both presented in perfect harmony in these ratios, you're absolutely not having to be the wizard behind the curtain. All you have to do is have perfect attendance, and you get the benefits of these very clever created formulas. Now, moving down to folate and B12. Folate and B12, let me do folate real quick by itself. Really good for certain types of anemias, really good for blood flow issues to the extremities, also for erectile dysfunction, those type of things. Vitamin B12 is kind of good, kind of bad, depending on which one you get. The synthetic cyanocobalamin, you ever heard back in the old days of patients getting cobalt treatments? Cobalamin is actually cobalt, and then methyl cobalamin is the natural organic source that we get from food. It is fantastic. And I had an old professor one time, and Alex, you talked about your professor that said if we all knew what he knew, your head would explode.
Yeah.
Well, I actually thought my head was going to explode. Listen to this guy, but he told me he practiced till he was 92. And he told me one day, he said, son, acupuncture works because it brings energy into the body. And the reason it works by bringing energy into the body is the acupuncture needles are antennas that hang out of the body and pull electromagnetic fields, wavelengths through the body. And when you swallow B12, because it is essentially a metal, it is like a cobalt cousin, it is bringing energy into the body. Now, everybody will tell you it's for anemia. And I would tell you, they know a fun fact about B12, but they don't know B12. B12 is a mystery nutrient that brings energy into the body and heals all kinds of things. So I've already told my wife, I said, babe, if I end up incoherent on my deathbed prematurely and you want me to make a comeback, they don't know what to do with me. You mega dose me with B12 because that makes me an antenna that pulls in the healing energies from the universe into your body. So I'm a huge advocate of B12. Now, biotin will help us with our skin, with our hair, with our nails. Pantothenic acid, we talked about. Now, Alex, I could get on another debate with you, and you beat me last week when we debated, and we talked about, is this nutrient for chemistry or is it for emotional? And I made an argument that our ashwagandha was completely for chemistry purposes. And you beat me, and you proved that it's much more emotional in nature. You would probably beat me if we argued about pantothenic acid, because pantothenic acid is tremendous for emotional stress. So I always tell people that if you have adrenal exhaustion and you have a lot of fatigue and you're really run down, and you're run down because you're structurally running a marathon or digging a ditch, you take vitamin C compounds. But if you're an air traffic controller that's going through a divorce and an audit at the same time, then you take pantothenic acid, because for emotional stress, that helps you with that from a much better solution. Now, our calcium is good for our bones, but it's also good as the biggest buffering agent in the human body is calcium bicarbonate. And if we want an IV and we go needle in the vein, we need to hang a bag of calcium bicarbonate. But if we're going to do it orally through the body, we want our calcium from greens and vegetables. And here's why. 75% of the Earth's crust is calcium. The other 25% is the other 76 minerals. So when we're looking at the main buffering, and when I say buffering, I mean alkalinity, and I mean alkalinity because I don't mean acidity, and I don't mean acidity because acidity causes disease, and alkalinity and bringing us back to neutrality is where we need to be, and we have to have greens and calcium to do that. And then when you go deeper into those minerals, we're looking at iron, zinc, and selenium. You can't have proper thyroid function without selenium and its antioxidant effects. Zinc, we put on our noses to keep from getting sunburned, but zinc marries hydrogen to chloride to form stomach acid. And when you form stomach acid properly, you digest properly, you break these foods down properly. When you break them down properly, you absorb them completely. So we have to have zinc involved. By the way, when a baby has diaper rash, they use zinc. When an adult has a sore throat, they use a zinc lozenge. From one end of the GI tract to the other end of the GI tract, you got to have zinc. and dead middle of the GI tract, where zinc marries hydrogen chloride to form hydrochloric acid to absorb your nutrients. Zinc is a player. Look how clever this formula is. You guys don't have to know all this. Dr. Rubin, Dr. Josh, they know all this. They've designed this formula so that if you don't know, you still get to go. It's still got every single thing in there. We're looking at magnesium and chromium for chromium is so huge. I use chromium often with my blood sugar patients. Who's a blood sugar patient? Everybody with the pulse. Your insulin levels. Remember, we talked about we have 3 times more diabetics than we had in the mid-90s, right?
Right.
So if we have 3 times more diabetics, what makes our insulin work better? And what makes our insulin work better is chromium. So our chromium is phenomenal in this. He's keeping our electrolytes balanced with sodium and potassium. We're keeping our veggie and fruit blend to keep us alkaline. And then he's got some fermented mushrooms in there and our digestive health blend. And Alex, I don't know if you know this, we went on and on and on about all the B vitamins. If a human body is working perfectly, do you know where you're supposed to get your B vitamins?
Food.
No, sir. No, sir. You're supposed to get your B vitamins from your gut flora. And if we had perfect guts, and guys, if you want to go back, Dr. Alex and I did a podcast on gut health. If your gut is perfectly fluoridated and your microbiome is populated by the ones that should be in there, you're making these B vitamins that do all these fantastic things for you. Well, what if you've had too many antibiotics? What if you've had too much white trash that had yeast in it? What if you've had steroids? What if you've had birth control pills? What if you've had a high refined diet? How's your microbiome? And so all the leaky gut people will benefit from this tremendously. So Alex, here's my couple points that I'd like to kind of wrap this whole big thing. And guys, I talked as fast as I could because I wanted you, each and every one of you, to have all this information. Celebrate this formula for what it does not have in it. Celebrate this formula for the ratios of things that go together as cofactors and coenzymes, and celebrate this formula because it's not only whole food, but it's organic. So we're not getting those things that we're getting in the produce aisle that are contaminated. And so really fantastic formula. I'm very happy that Dr. Alex brought me on board with this, because with his relationship with Dr. Josh and Dr. Rubin, I'm able to bring my patient base a product that, is going to be tremendously beneficial to that population. So anyway, Dr. Alex, I hope I did what you wanted me to there, and just a quick run through of that formula.